Hi everyone, Sarah Bonner here. I wanted to create a little screencast that would show us a little bit about our assessment practices that will be happening in language arts this year. I'll scroll up so that you can see where I am. I am in our first unit, and as you can tell here, you have seen that our kids have talked about I need to understand themselves as people, because that's my first goal. Understanding them as learners. We've gone through a lot of personality and multiple intelligence assessments, kind of taking a look at how to advocate for ourselves or help ourselves as learners, so that they don't just become dependent on me as their teacher, that they can find and learn and discover other things that go beyond just my point of view. I've also talked about the idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset within this last week. The idea that our brain is a muscle and that it can be built and it can be an ongoing process when we use words like perseverance and we keep trying, and also the idea of that we may not know something, but that the fact that we may not know something yet and that we're willing to try to learn more. Last week, as you may have heard, we talked about collaboration strategies, and I might recommend clicking on the collaboration guidelines to abide by in our classroom. All of the 8th grade class helped me create 8 specific guidelines that work really well for collaboration that we will adhere to or we will follow for the remainder of our year. But one of the main purposes of why I wanted to talk to you tonight is the idea of assessment. As many of you may or may not know, within the last 3 years, I've gradually let go of traditional assessment practices or grading practices to embody more feedback and more conversations about learning, because I feel those types of principles not only get me closer to kids and build relationship with kids, but they also help me really talk to kids about the learning process. As well as I give them feedback, they know how to approach their mistakes and they know how to grow from their, I'm going to use imaginative air quotes, grow from their failures, because I'm coaching them through issues so that they're not making the same mistakes as they usually would for readers and writers. A couple of the things that I wanted to point out specifically on our class website under the assessment. You are free to click on the video of why it matters. This is me talking to students of why talking about assessment is really important as we head into the school year. Also, we read an article that talked about traditional grades, what you and I might have known as A, B, C, D, F, or a grade or GPA or grade point average, and then how standards and feedback are different from that. In addition, we also did a Socratic Seminar today, which is a circular discussion talking about these 2 articles and about how thinking about the power of feedback and the importance of feedback go beyond what a grade could possibly offer at the top of our paper. Some of the different resources are also linked here, so you are free to check these out. They're very short snippets from teacher perspectives talking about why we should start changing the conversations between doing not just grades, but we should also talk about feedback. This Thursday, we'll be doing a blog reflection answering this question of formulating our understanding of class assessment practices and why we will abandon traditional grades. And so one of the primary reasons why I wanted to talk with you tonight about the reason why we'll be abandoning traditional grades is for the purpose of communication. If my student or if my son was in this class, I know that I would want to be informed of his progress as a learner as much as possible, just so that I can have at-home conversations with the work that's happening in this class, as well as see if there's any at-home support that I could possibly offer. So while I wish Skyward could really support the kind of thinking that it takes to be in a feedback-generated classroom, it really doesn't show much more than just points and averages and letter grades. Every 3 weeks, I'll have a chance to post letter grades, but your child and I will definitely have conversations about learning, and they will give input on how those letter grades actually match up. So they have a lot of input in this class when it comes to the deciding factors of their grades for every 3 weeks. And what I mean by 3 weeks is that, we have midterms and we have quarters that we still have to abide by within our school policies. One form that I really want to focus in on tonight, and I'm going to switch gears here, is going to be a form that looks like this. Move it over here a little bit, if I can. Okay. This is a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet that talks about giving assessment feedback a little bit more meat and a little bit more picture that goes beyond just the regular traditional letter grade at the top of a paper. So a couple of things that I wanted to walk you through, because we'll be setting this up tomorrow in class so that students know how to manage their learning as well. This is a task that I'm trying to work with them throughout the year. So you'll see every unit is based on a certain assignments. Notice that I have about 6 assignments listed there, because the idea is quality versus quantity. I want to have quality assignments that kids are engaging and they work really well with, rather than having a lot of assignments that could just turn into being very confusing and overwhelming. So just to kind of walk you through this, the assignment is listed on the top here. Students will manage on whether or not they've completed it, and also insert a link so that it can be accessed. There will be feedback and ideas and questions from me at this point. And then also students have an opportunity to respond to any of the feedback that I might have been given on those specific assignments. In addition to that column, I've also added an area of additional notes that could possibly relate to behavior or the outlook towards work, but I don't want it to impact the academic assessments. So for example, you may remember back in the day where you might have gotten points off of a homework assignment because you didn't turn it in on time. Well, as a person who evaluates academic progress, I can't necessarily blend or mix the ideas of turning things in on time to whether or not the student demonstrated the learning. In my eyes, I need to care about, can the student demonstrate the learning? Whether it was turned in on time or not doesn't really factor into how this should be assessed. So that's kind of another way of trying to think about how to reorganize assessment and grades and things like that. While I do press due dates, because that's when I tell students they will be receiving feedback from me, it is not something that I want grades to be a punishable act by any means, just because of behavioral things. Down below here, you'll see all the learning standards. If I were to keep scrolling, you'd see reading, literature, informational text, writing, explanatory writing, so on and so forth. These are our learning standards as an 8th grade English Language Arts learning standards from the state of Illinois. And so if it's applicable to the assignment, there are 2 ratings that will be placed here so that you can kind of see the progress of your child. So it would either be M for meets or NYT for not there yet. So the idea with these different assignments is that we are meeting standards. Please don't get freaked out if there's an NYT, because you and I both know learning takes time, and then there's progress to be shown throughout this year. So if a meet standards can finally come around sometime throughout the year, that's always a bonus in our eyes. This kind of gives a snapshot about where we are and also how we're going to be managing this stuff. As you can probably well guess, Skyward cannot give this much detail, as it only relates to numbers and points and averages and letter grades. So in efforts to allow students to start talking about their assessment on where they feel they might be as a learner, we use this as a tool to kind of help structure that discussion as I conference with kids throughout the year. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show you is also posted online, and I'll do a recap of where this stuff is posted, is a document that says 8th grade language arts assessment guidelines. So you may wonder how I might mark meets or not there yet, or where your child marks meets or not there yet. You'll see that we have a rubric set up that we've reviewed in class, and we will continue to review in class as students try and talk about their learning progress. So I'll skip down here to learning standards. So for example, for writing and language learning standards, one of our 8th grade standards this year is to use credible sources or reliable sources to write and think about. So meets, the sources you use are considerable and on topic. So print, website, video, they all meet a criteria that makes it credible. and not there yet, the child still needs help deciphering whether or not sources are credible and tends to use sources that might be questionable to its credibility. So it's kind of one of those ideas, do you have it or do you not have it? And if you don't have it, it's my job to kind of help coach you along the way on how to go from not there yet to the meats section. So that's my job. On the class website, if I could point your attention to the sidebar here, you'll see that the assessment feedbacks for students for the templates will be here, but they will be clicking on this tomorrow and making their own. So it's shared with 3 people. It's shared with themselves, it's shared with you at home, and it's shared with me, because those are the 3 pillars of success when it comes to education. In addition to that, I wanted to scroll all the way down. I'm not sure if I covered this in my last explanation, but I know that this could definitely be something that is questionable and possibly uneasy because it's new and it's different and you may not be used to it. But I've also included a bunch of resources down here about that are very parent friendly in case you are wondering why I made this change. I'm a believer, if I know better, I can do better. And doing a lot of research over these last couple of years about what assessment actually means and what that looks like for learners so that they are better prepared. It's really come down to when I know what I'm doing needs to be changed, I try and find ways to change it. I can't promise you that this is a perfect system, and I look for ways to change it if I can make it better. And I definitely welcome any and all feedback, but I want you to be aware of the why I'm changing it. You'll see a lot of the different specific research pieces down here. I wanted to show you what it was going to look like, which would be the Google Sheets shared with you tomorrow, and then also where additional resources can be on our class webpage. I appreciate your trust and support in this matter, and I would encourage you that if there's any type of question or even the slight hint of frustration, that you please contact me right away. If you know me, you'll know that I'm very reasonable and I'm a problem solver, and I'm very amicable and very easy to get along with insofar as having these discussions about our kids to do whatever is best for our kids. So this is just a quick snippet about assessment and the things that will play out in this class. So if you hear kids, they have to do their assessment feedback chart, or if they're doing their self-assessment, those are the terms that I'm going to be using in class and that you'll see on homework sheets and in planners and things like that, so that kids are starting to become owners of their own learning. I'm trying to make them, I should say influence them to become more independent and more in charge of their learning journey, so that this is something that can flourish as they enter into high school. Again, please contact me anytime. I will definitely be talking a lot about this throughout the year, and definitely be looking for more shared information from your child starting tomorrow. Thank you.